My childhood alpha friend stole my Omega girlfriend, and we were about to get engaged. I was cheated on from head to toe. What happened to you never go after your friend's girl? Just as I was about to cut ties with him, he looked at me with deep, tender eyes. You saw it yourself, she doesn't love you like I do. 01. The night before our engagement, my girlfriend of 3 years broke up with me. Her reason? I didn't love her enough, and she said that while leaning happily in Fenwick's arms, my childhood friend. I glared at Fenwick so hard I could have burned a hole through him. What happened to you never go after your friend's girl? Seriously? Both of them digging at my corner? I stared at my ex and forced out, hope you two last forever. She instantly became my ex-girlfriend. This was my first time being made a fool like this. I turned to leave, but Fenwick grabbed my arm. I froze for a second before hearing him say, Emerson, I think your heat's coming on. A second later, I heard my ex let out a soft gasp, and I turned around immediately. Her face was flushed, her eyes turning hazy. That's when I realized my pheromones were leaking uncontrollably. Heat was flooding my body, and my eyes locked on my Omega X, blood red and barely holding back. The next moment, Fenwick yanked me into his arms. Through the haze, I heard him chuckle. You two already broke up, and you're still thinking about her? Furious. I bit down on his shoulder. He grunted, and just as my eyes met my ex's again and I was about to let go, Fenwick pushed the back of my head down. Good boy, bite deeper. My ex collapsed onto the floor, staring at me in shock. 02. Fenwick and I never got along growing up. I thought he was two-faced. He thought I was shallow and a flirt. He had delicate skin and was shorter than me. Before we differentiated, I was sure he'd end up in Omega, and I was ready to laugh at him. But in the end, we both became alphas, and Fenwick grew from a soft pretty boy into a refined-looking troublemaker. He shot up in height and was starting to outgrow me. Naturally, I wasn't going to lose. I started drinking milk every day. We competed over everything for years. Still, I never imagined Fenwick would actually steal my girlfriend. When I opened my eyes again, I was in Fenwick's house. He sat at my bedside, staring at me without blinking. I instantly sat up, unnerved by his gaze. Where's the suppressant? I asked. He gave a faint smile. Already gave you the shot. Without thinking, I asked, where's Sophia? His expression went blank for a second. Then he smirked. What? Emerson, you didn't want the suppressant, you wanted an Omega instead? I frowned. I haven't even settled the score with you yet, and you're acting all smug? He dropped the sarcasm but stayed silent, smiling faintly. I was just worried she'd get thrown into heat from my pheromones. Since, I started to explain. Fenwick's blank stare shut me up. He finished for me, calmly, since you marked her, right? My face heated. I didn't mark her. I was just worried she'd be affected. He went quiet, then asked, you dated for 3 years and never marked her? A strange wave of embarrassment hit me. No, I snapped. I'm a traditional alpha. I wanted to save everything for my wedding night. I hadn't even kissed Sophia. Oh, Fenwick said, sounding amused. No wonder she said you didn't love her enough. My glare could have cut glass. What's that supposed to mean? He smiled lazily. If you can't even give her a mark, you call that love? I was furious. I'm not like you, going around marking people casually. Fenwick frowned. When have I ever marked someone casually? 03. Fenwick's always had the image of being every Omega's best friend. Naturally, some alphas got jealous and spread rumors. Over time, his reputation turned bad. Thinking of him stealing my girlfriend, I scoffed and shot him a sidelong look. You know exactly what you've done. Fenwick actually laughed. I'd love to know, why don't you tell me? So I started listing. You dumped a pure little Omega after getting her pregnant and made her go to the hospital alone, and you stole my girlfriend. He was silent for a moment, then asked, who told you that? That guilty reaction. Feeling more confident, I crossed my arms and sneered. Your reputation's been bad for ages. Do I really need anyone to tell me? Fenwick gave a cold laugh. And you believe that? That just made me angrier. I didn't at first, but then you really went and stole my girlfriend. And to think I considered you a brother. Something in my words made his expression shift briefly. After a pause, he looked at me flatly. I didn't steal your girlfriend. She wanted to break up with you herself. I didn't believe it. Impossible. She told me she couldn't stand how you never responded to her or made her feel loved. He went on. She was debating breaking up, and I just gave her some advice. If you don't believe me, I have a recording. After a moment, he added, Emerson, she doesn't love you as much as you think. Breaking up isn't a bad thing. I lay back on the bed, unable to process the blow. Honestly, more than the breakup itself. What hurt was Fenwick being involved. We'd grown up together, I knew he wasn't lying just now. Sophia really didn't love me that much. I bit down on the blanket, squeezing out a few bitter tears. Truthfully, I didn't love her that much either, but heartbreak demands at least a few tears. Fenwick spoke up after a moment. Do you like her? I hesitated. Of course. Why else would I have dated her for 3 years? Do you love her? This time, I didn't know how to answer. Fenwick tilted my chin so I had to face him. His eyes locked on mine. Ever kissed her? He asked softly. Those few tears had already dried up. I shook my head in a daze. Fenwick leaned in and pressed his lips to mine. My eyes flew wide open. My first kiss. My virtue. I'm ruined. He pulled back. Your heart's beating so fast. Emerson. 04. You're insane. I shoved Fenwick away in a panic. My lips still tingling with the lingering warmth from his. My heart was still racing. Fenwick lowered his gaze with a faint smile, then looked back at me. The deep, dark look in his eyes felt unfamiliar, and a chill ran down my spine. I'd been careless. This was Fenwick's home. If he got furious and decided to silence me, who would I even cry to? I swallowed hard, trying to calm him down. You, take a breath. Are you hitting your susceptibility period too? Why don't you take an inhibitor first? I was being completely sincere, because I'd seen Fenwick in his susceptibility period before. By sheer coincidence, he always seemed to run into me during those times. And, even more coincidentally, he always ended up biting me when he lost control. I'd always figured, since we were close friends, if he needed to bite to get through it, so be it. Worst case, I could bite him back, but he'd never bitten my lips before. And now, I was in my susceptibility period too. Who knew what might happen if two alphas and susceptibility started biting each other? I'd never thought about dating another alpha, least of all Fenwick. I quietly tried to step back, but Fenwick caught me in one swift move. With a cold smile, he said, "Didn't you let me bite before?" "What? Now you won't." "What do you mean, before?" "Buddy, I let you bite me before because it was a matter of survival. In those moments, if I didn't let you take a few bites, you'd practically be eating people alive. Between getting bitten and getting completely devoured, I can tell which is the lesser evil." I forced a laugh. "What are you saying? Take your inhibitor, and I'll still let you bite." But my smile soon froze. "Bro, could you tone down those predatory eyes and your pheromone scent? You're really scaring me here." 05. After taking the inhibitor, Fenwick latched onto my arm like it was a ham leg and gnawed on it the entire night. I didn't sleep a wink. My arm was sore and itchy, but I didn't dare move. Who knew if he might suddenly decide my mouth looked more interesting? If I had to choose, an arm bite was much more acceptable than a lip bite. The next morning, I cradled my arm, which had been sucked on all night, nearly in tears. It was covered in bruises and reeked of Fenwick's mint-scented pheromones. No way I could show this arm in public. Grinding my teeth, I glared at the peacefully sleeping Fenwick and raised my fist, but I couldn't bring myself to hit him. It'd be a shame to ruin such a beautiful face. What can I say? I'm weak for good looks. Fenwick wasn't wrong. I am shallow and easily swayed by appearance. It's not my fault he's an alpha who looks better than most omegas. Who wouldn't be tempted? If only Fenwick had differentiated as an omega back then. I suddenly slapped myself. How could I think something so terrible? Looking at Fenwick's absurdly attractive face, I felt instant shame. I muttered under my breath, "Fantasizing about your bro, absolutely unforgivable." Fenwick slowly opened his eyes, his gaze sharpening instantly. "Why are you still in my house? Buddy, do you even hear yourself?" I raised my thoroughly bitten arm and said through gritted teeth, "You chewed on my arm all night, and now you want to kick me out? Fenwick, you're unbelievable." Fenwick looked at my bruised arm in silence. Then, in a calm voice, he held out his own arm to me, "Just like we did when we were kids. You can bite me back." This time it was my turn to freeze. Thank goodness I didn't mention he'd bitten my lips last night, or I'd have to return the favor, and that would be way too awkward. I forced a magnanimous tone. "Forget it. I won't hold it against you." Turning my head, I noticed a small white medicine bottle on the bedside table. Pointing to it, I asked curiously, "You sick?" He smiled faintly and shook his head. "No, it's just vitamin C." "Oh." Fenwick raised an eyebrow, his voice tinged with amusement. "Still feeling down?" I blinked, confused. "What?" he repeated patiently. "From Sophia breaking up with you, still upset?" Instantly, my fighting spirit surged. I puffed up proudly, as if, worst case, I'll just find someone else. With my qualities, you think I can't get an omega? Fenwick's gaze darkened. staring straight at me without responding for a long while. A creeping unease rose in me. This was the exact same expression he had before pinning me down during his susceptibility periods. What did I say this time that set him off? In a husky voice, he asked, "Does it have to be an omega?" I nodded, then hesitated and shook my head. "Seriously, if you don't like what I said, just say so." In the end, I clutched my injured arm and muttered weakly, "Anyway, maybe you should. Put on a bite guard first." 06. Ow! Fenwick, did you just bite my neck? You! I scrambled into the corner of the bed, eyes red with outrage. Fenwick had just grabbed me like a madman, sinking his teeth into my neck several times as if venting his emotions. He hadn't bitten my gland, but for an alpha, the neck was still plenty sensitive. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, he licked it away. My eyes went wide. Good grief, Fenwick had completely lost it. He was already good-looking, but with his eyes rimmed red, he looked dangerously tempting. "Emerson, what's wrong with an alpha?" He paused, leaning closer until he was looking down at me. "Why can't it be me?" "Because, absolutely not. I wanted kids, and I only liked sweet, soft omegas." "Sure, you smell good too, but you're not soft, and you're not an omega, and most importantly, you could never be the one under me." As much as I hated to admit it, Fenwick's pheromone rank was higher than mine. If we were ever together, I'd definitely be the one on the bottom. I tried reasoning with him. "Fenwick, calm down. Whatever you want to say, put the bite guard on first." Fenwick stared at me quietly for a moment, then smiled. "All right, you put it on me." He handed me the bite guard from the bedside table, his burning gaze practically glued to me. It was the kind of playful, predatory look a big cat gives its prey when it walks right up to its claws. For the first time in my life, an alpha was looking at me like that, and my scalp prickled. I took the bite guard with stiff hands, turning my head away as I pressed it half-heartedly onto his face. "Emerson, it's crooked," he said. My hand twitched, meeting his lowered gaze. My whole body tensed. Fenwick chuckled softly. "Emerson, don't get distracted." Snapping out of it, I hastily shoved the bite guard into place and locked it. Finally, safe. I barely had time to breathe before Fenwick wrapped his arms around me from behind, pressing the bite guard against the soft skin of my neck. I froze on the spot, struck like lightning, leaning close to my ear. His voice was low and hoarse. "Emerson, if you can't accept me, then why can you accept being bitten by me, and held by me?" My face burned, and I couldn't say it out loud. "Shut up, because I'm used to you biting me. I'm used to you holding me. What other reason could there be?" He continued on his own. "Obviously, it's because you like me too." 07. After that susceptibility period ended, I had been avoiding Fenwick, not because of anything else, but because he had torn through that last thin veil between us, and there was absolutely no possibility between me and Fenwick. I'm the eldest son of my father's fourth concubine, with an omega younger sister below me. The old man is 90 years old this year, and his health is not looking good. His only wish is to hold an alpha grandson. Unfortunately, all his children are either too young, have chosen to remain child-free, are in same-gender relationships, or have only given birth to an omega and refuse to have more children. To please him, and to earn more inheritance for my mother and sister, I had no choice but to take certain measures. Originally, everything was set with Sophia, just one step away from marriage, but it still fell apart in the end. I was disappointed, sure, but I never expected Fenwick to have those kinds of thoughts about me. I wouldn't say I was repulsed, but I was definitely surprised. It's a pity, really. If he were an omega, maybe there could have been a chance, but he isn't. The chances of two alphas conceiving are next to nothing, and the old man doesn't have much time left. So these days, I'd been avoiding him, lingering instead around matchmaking corners. That day, I had already settled on the prenuptial and marital agreements with an omega and was ready to get engaged, but Sophia suddenly jumped out, claiming I liked alphas and was just a scumbag alpha trying to cheat my way into marriage. Her scene scared off the omega I was about to be engaged to. It was the first time my expression turned completely dark. "Sophia, you do know slander is illegal, right?" She hesitated for a moment, then stubbornly said, "I saw you bite Fenwick with my own eyes. How could that be fake?" Only then did I remember, during that susceptibility period, she had seen me bite Fenwick. I gave a cold laugh. Two alphas biting each other proves nothing. Can he give me a child? If he could, I'd even consider marrying him. I turned to leave, only to see Fenwick standing behind me at some point. I frowned. What was he doing here? When I saw his dark expression, my heart sank to the bottom. He'd heard everything. As I tried to walk past him, Fenwick spoke. "You want a child?" I stopped, sighed in my heart, and answered, "Yes." "You're in such a rush to date and marry just for that?" After a pause, I said, "Yes." Fenwick nodded. "All right, I understand." 08. At the old man's 90th birthday banquet, I saw Fenwick again. Our families are old acquaintances. As the only son in his family, I knew Fenwick would definitely attend. Since that unpleasant incident, I hadn't seen him once. Fenwick stood in the crowd wearing a perfectly tailored white suit, standing out like a crane among chickens. The moment our eyes met, I quietly looked away. Until the banquet ended, we didn't say a single word to each other. As we were leaving, I couldn't help calling out to him. He paused, turned, and looked at me calmly. "What is it?" My heart sank. My nose burned for no reason, but I forced a smile. "Nothing, it's just, we haven't seen each other in a while. I kind of missed you." Fenwick's face was expressionless as he turned and left. He felt like a stranger now. After adjusting my emotions, I also prepared to drive away. Halfway there, my pheromones suddenly went out of control. My susceptibility period had hit, and there was no suppressant in my car. I'd been so busy with matchmaking these days that I hadn't paid attention to the dates. I could only pull into the nearest parking space and, with trembling hands, dial a number. I barely had any clarity left and didn't even know who I called, but the other side picked up almost instantly. "What is it?" The voice was familiar, but in my dazed state, I couldn't recognize it. Driven by survival instinct, I rasped, "My susceptibility period just started. Can you help me?" There was a pause on the other end, then urgency in his tone. "Where are you?" I couldn't speak anymore, my consciousness slipping away. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital. My younger sister sat at my bedside, her eyes red and swollen as if she'd been crying. I forced a smile. "What's wrong, brother? You finally woke up." I slowly sat up and asked, "Where's Mom?" She hesitated for a long time before answering. "She's at someone else's house." I frowned, puzzled. "What happened?" Tears spilled over as she spoke while wiping them away. "You went into susceptibility and called Fenwick. He got into a car accident on his way to find you, and he's still in the ICU. Mom went to apologize." "Brother, what do we do now?" The old man already knows. My vision went black for a moment, but I forced myself to stay calm. It's fine, let me think." "Fenwick, you can't be hurt. I want to be discharged. Help me get the paperwork done. I need to see Fenwick." 09. When I got to the ICU, there were people gathered outside. I hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward. "Uncle, Auntie, how's Fenwick?" His mother wiped her tears and shook her head without speaking. It was his father who answered. "The doctor says the blood clot in his brain is pressing against his nerves. If it doesn't dissolve, he might end up in a vegetative state." My heart trembled, but I nodded and comforted them. "Fenwick will get better." I stayed with his parents outside the ICU for 3 days before Fenwick finally woke up. But he had lost his memory. He didn't remember anything. The doctor said it might be because the clot hadn't fully dissolved. The next day, Fenwick was moved to a regular ward. I walked to his bedside, and he stared at me intently. After a long moment, he smiled. "Who are you?" I smiled back. "I'm your friend." "Oh, just a regular friend?" "Yes." Fenwick's eyes curved in a smile. "You're lying." My heart skipped a beat. "You're carrying my pheromone mark. How could we possibly be just regular friends?" 10. After Fenwick was discharged, he demanded that I personally take care of him. Since he had been injured coming to find me, I couldn't refuse. The matchmaking plans had to be put on hold. During this time, Fenwick seemed like a different person, clinging to me every day, forbidding me from talking to any Omega. Before, when I dated Omegas, he never said a word. I could only tell him helplessly, "Grace is my real sister. I can't just ignore my own sister." He pouted. "Other than your sister, you're not allowed to interact with any other Omega." I couldn't resist teasing. "Well, my mom's an Omega too." Fenwick narrowed his eyes and ground his teeth. I surrendered instantly. All right, no contact, no contact." Only then did Fenwick smile and ruffle my hair. I froze on the spot. "What's wrong?" "He never patted your head before." Fenwick now always referred to his past self as him. Feeling awkward, I nodded. "At most, we'd bite each other's shoulder or arm." His gaze darkened. "He bit you, and you still thought you were just regular friends?" I nodded seriously. "I bit him too. We're both alphas. Biting doesn't exactly cost a chunk of flesh." Fenwick's mood suddenly dropped. "Then which other alpha has bitten you?" "Only you." The oppressive air instantly lifted. He blinked and asked, Then can I bite you now? I nodded. Before I could react, Fenwick pressed my neck and bit down. My eyes flew wide open. He bit my gland. I started to struggle. Wait, Fenwick, I'm not an Omega. Don't bite my gland. Fenwick ignored me, continuing to inject his pheromones into me. My limbs began to weaken, an unfamiliar sensation flooding my mind. After what felt like an eternity, Fenwick let go, leaning close to my ear. His voice was hoarse. Didn't you know that alphas can also feel it when their glands are bitten? He brushed over my gland with his fingers, chuckling softly. He was so pitiful. He didn't even dare to bite your gland. But that's alright. I dare. 11. The next day, I woke up in Fenwick's arms. His eyelashes were long and thick, his lips red and teeth white, a strikingly handsome face. My heart seemed to skip a beat. I couldn't help but brush his eyelashes with my finger, a small smile creeping up at the corner of my mouth. Fenwick's eyelids fluttered, and I froze instantly. He opened his eyes and smiled. Awake? I nodded awkwardly. Yeah, stay and sleep with me a little longer. He held me close and fell back asleep. I stared at him, motionless. Once Fenwick's breathing evened out, I gently moved his arm and got up to cover him with a blanket. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was the Omega I'd been arranging to meet recently for matchmaking. Are you free to meet for lunch today and talk about the wedding? I agreed immediately. Fenwick had been watching me all these days, making it impossible to meet the Omega we had planned with. Now that he was asleep, it was better to seize the chance to meet. I touched the teeth marks on my nape gland and covered them with a scarf. At the cafe, the Omega slid a contract across the table. I've read this. The marriage term is 1 year. The doctor said my mom has at least 2 years left. So 1 year is too short. I can't accept it. I nodded, understanding. How long do you think it should be? The Omega thought for a moment. Let's make it a round number. How about 3 years? I was about to agree when a familiar male voice came from behind me. 3 years? Even 3 days is too long. I was shocked. Fenwick, your body isn't healed. How are you out? Fenwick sneered. If I don't come out, my wife's going to marry someone else. Wife? My eyes widened. The Omega's eyes flicked between us. You two are a couple. Before I could deny it, Fenwick gave a crooked smile. As you can see, the Omega was intimidated by Fenwick's overwhelming pheromones and wisely left. The room was left with just Fenwick and me. Fenwick walked over, his hand touching my cheek gently. Anything else you want to say? This was the second time Fenwick called me that. I just had my gland bitten yesterday, and now his pheromones were stirring me so much I couldn't collect myself. Seeing my silence, Fenwick smirked, then added coldly, I'm very angry now. You better make it up to me. The minty scent of his pheromones enveloped me instantly. My mind cleared, and I nervously soothed him. It's my fault. Please don't be mad. 12. Eventually, I coaxed Fenwick onto his bed. He pulled off my scarf, bit my gland, injecting his pheromones, then whispered hoarsely, why are you covered in Omega pheromones? It smells bad. Let me change your scent. I was getting tired of him biting my gland repeatedly and pushed his shoulder, only to find I couldn't move him. Fenwick was taller and stronger. I suddenly regretted not working out with him back then. Weakly, I said, stop biting my gland. He paused, then started counting, rubbing the back of my neck. You promised me you wouldn't meet any Omegas. Why aren't you keeping your word? Ha! My head was fuzzy, and I couldn't hold back when he nagged so unfairly. I'm an alpha. How could I not meet Omegas? Fenwick, don't be unreasonable. Fenwick laughed coldly, his tone strange. You talk to him like that? How did he manage to not punch you? After a pause, he said meaningfully, he's really patient. Too bad I'm not. With that, he flipped me over. Before I could speak, he covered my mouth. What was going on? I bit his palm hard and tasted strong mint and blood. Fenwick groaned and released me. I pushed him away, backing against the wall. Fenwick, are you crazy? He suddenly smiled and stared at me, mocking every word. When did you realize he was crazy? A chill ran down my spine. Lately, Fenwick spoke so strangely, as if he and the Fenwick I knew were two different people. I joked before about his two-faced nature, but I grabbed his collar fiercely. What do you mean? Fenwick dropped the act, smiling. As you said, he's been crazy ever since he first liked you. Thanks to you, too. At first, he could suppress me with medicine, but after that car accident, his consciousness slipped away. The Fenwick who always obeyed you and called you Emerson is gone. Now, this body, and you, belong to me. Do you understand now? My mind was a mess. I gritted my teeth. What did you mean when you said I had his pheromone mark? Pheromone mark? He sneered with that all too familiar face. Cruelly, Of course that was a lie. He's not an Omega, how could he leave a pheromone mark on you? 13. I punched him in the face with everything I had. Fenwick's head tilted, then he wiped the blood from his mouth, smiled without anger, and tied my wrist with the scarf I'd thrown aside. You're angry now. You were much crueler to him than I've been to you. While struggling, memories of dating and even getting engaged to various Omegas in front of Fenwick flooded my mind, making my heart ache. After a long silence, I asked, voice barely a whisper, Fenwick, is he really never coming back? He snorted coldly, feeling sorry for him now. I already told you, he's not coming back. A sudden idea flashed through my mind. Where is the medicine he was taking? Fenwick grinned. Give up hope. Even if he's taking medicine now, it won't suppress me. Or put another way, he probably doesn't want to wake up. Why? Maybe seeing me trembling softened Fenwick's expression and tone. Because he's completely disappointed in you. So he left this mess for me. For a moment, it felt like thunder had struck. Completely disappointed. Why? Because I'm dating Omegas? A familiar heat surged inside me. My pheromones started overflowing uncontrollably. My susceptibility period had arrived. Always not arriving on time, but right now of all times. The rose-scented pheromones and minty ones, once incompatible, now intertwined into the scent of mint rose candy. I shivered uncontrollably, instinctively trying to climb onto Fenwick. Surprisingly, Fenwick backed away from me. He smiled slightly. I knew exactly what he was thinking. He wanted to see me fail. My pride flared up and I held back what I almost said. Please, just let me bite once. Just once. I bit my lip hard to stay silent. It started bleeding. The strong metallic taste of blood mixed with rose pheromones masked the minty pheromones a bit, and I felt slightly better. Fenwick stood nearby, watching my breakdown with interest. Feeling uncomfortable, I glared at him, biting my lip, unable to speak. You're being very disobedient today. I'm not happy. He paused, eyes darkening, then said, it's clear he used to be reluctant to discipline you, so now it's my turn. Suddenly, the minty pheromones in the air grew thicker, almost sticky. They penetrated everywhere, not just torturing me through breathing, but invading my pores. My mind was foggy, rationality slipping, and the primal alpha instincts nearly drove me insane. But the scarf on my wrist stopped me from moving. I weakly cursed him. You're an asshole. He laughed, stepped closer, grabbed my chin, clearly pleased. Good. He's crazy. I'm an asshole. Make sure you know the difference. I was about to curse again when a hot, stinging sensation burst in my gland, followed by endless darkness. 14. These few days during my susceptibility period passed in a haze. Fenwick didn't give me any suppressant. I was forced to break down repeatedly, begging him for pheromones. Strangely, ever since he bit my gland, I couldn't resist his pheromones at all. It was as if his pheromones had become my second suppressant. He liked to leave me hanging for a while, happily watching me break down in embarrassment, then lean down to kiss my lips kindly, passing tiny threads of pheromones through his saliva. But that small amount was never enough. During the susceptibility period, an alpha instinctively seeks support. After each kiss, I begged him to bite my gland. Fenwick's eyes darkened as he muttered grudgingly, "You're not an Omega. Biting your gland won't help." I lost all reason and just showed him my gland, begging desperately, until he finally relented and bit me. This repeated again and again. In a daze, I seemed to return to the days living in the cold basement of the old manor. Emerson, don't be afraid. Come with me. A pair of young but defined hands pulled me into the sunlight. I barely opened my eyes in the light, but the boy before me had already grown into a young man. Fenwick held me somewhat obsessively. Emerson, if you can't accept me, then why can you accept being bitten and held by me? After a moment, he added on his own, of course it's because you like me. I snapped awake and instinctively touched the bite marks on the nape of my neck, the place Fenwick had bitten before. My heart throbbed painfully. Warm liquid dripped unconsciously onto my arm. I paused, frowned at the tear stains on my arm. I think I like Fenwick. The room was empty, no one else around. Memories flooded in like a tide. The feeling of my pride being crushed was unbearable. I sat stunned for a while, then quickly got up and packed my things. I had to leave this place without dignity. Just as I was about to leave, Fenwick came home. He looked at my luggage gently. Where are you going? I was exhausted and didn't want to argue. In a hoarse voice, I said, home. Move aside. Unexpectedly, he didn't stop me this time and stepped aside. Back home. Maybe noticing something was wrong with me, a well-kept woman approached with concern. Why do you look so pale? I forced a smile. Mom, I'm fine, just a little tired. She sighed with relief and nodded. You've taken care of Fenwick for so many days. It's normal to be tired. Don't go to matchmaking today. Rest well at home. My body stiffened slightly. I forced out a smile. Mom, I don't want to do matchmaking anymore. Why? No reason. Mom, I don't like Omegas. I paused, then decided. I don't want to fight for the family inheritance either. Believe me, I can earn money on my own. 15. The old man didn't make it through this winter. The funeral was grand. Many people attended. I was lost in thought when I happened to glance and saw Fenwick. He wore a black suit, his temperament even more refined and mature, standing out among the crowd. Grace looked at me puzzled. Brother, why don't you greet Brother Fenwick? The bite marks on my nape still throbbed slightly. I smiled faintly. Not appropriate. The next time I saw Fenwick was at a club. It was a place where I met clients, but I had no real connections and could only drink hard. Luckily, I'd made some name for myself over the years, no longer financially dependent on the family, gaining confidence. That day, the client was difficult, and I lost count of how many drinks I had, until my raised glass was stopped by someone. A familiar voice descended. He's drunk. I'll drink this for him. I looked up instinctively. It was Fenwick. Why was he here? Fenwick took me to a nearby hotel and laid me on the bed. I wanted to vomit, but when I saw him untie his tie, I forced myself to hold it back. He lifted my chin, expressionless. Emerson, why drink with that old man? Don't you know he likes alphas? I knew Fenwick was unhappy. Suddenly, I laughed. What's so funny? I stopped laughing and became serious. Drunk, I grabbed his collar hard and stared into his eyes, saying softly, I'm wondering which one you really are, the asshole, or Fenwick. Fenwick was silent for a moment, then threw the question back to me. What do you think? Who do you want me to be? After a pause, he whispered deeply, Emerson, who do you want me to be? I laughed, my nose touching his, teasing, so you want to be Emerson? Fenwick's eyes reddened as he whispered, I want it all. Can Emerson give it all? Want it all? Even if his heart was split in two, his soul torn apart? I laughed until tears fell, answering, how do you know I can't give it all if you don't try? 16. The next day, after sobering up, I asked him, have you been taking your medication lately? Fenwick was silent for a moment, then smiled and said, I have. I nodded, worried, and asked, what did your doctor say? About your alternate personality, is there a treatment plan? Right now, that was the only way I could barely tell them apart. Fenwick curled his lips. Of course there is. If Emerson doesn't like him, hypnosis can completely erase him. I frowned. Completely erase? That's right. Fenwick smiled innocently, then added, if Emerson doesn't like him, then he doesn't need to exist, right? A chill ran through me. Though the alternate personality was strong-willed, completely erasing it felt extreme. I hesitated before asking, isn't there a way for you two to coexist peacefully? Fenwick paused, then smiled. Doesn't Emerson dislike him? I faltered, but, Fenwick cut me off with a smile, speaking softly, Emerson, both he and I like you. In a way, we're rivals for your affection. Expecting us to get along peacefully, might be asking too much. I was stunned, suddenly caught off guard by the confession. Fenwick's smile didn't fade as he continued, so, Emerson, you can't be greedy, you have to choose just one. He handed me the ultimate power of life and death. At that moment, I was the executioner holding the knife. With a single word from me, I could decide the fate of half a soul. He was forcing me to choose. I stayed silent for a long while, then looked up and asked, can I meet the alternate personality now? Fenwick seemed surprised by my request but calmly said, of course. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the familiar teasing expression was back. The alternate personality raised an eyebrow and smiled at me. Long time no see. Miss me? I stayed calm. Cut the nonsense. I have questions. He shrugged helplessly. Ask away. I carefully started. Do you know, when you were born? I had to rephrase. When did you first gain your own consciousness? The alternate personality understood and answered vaguely. I don't remember. Probably a long time ago. I scoffed. Oh, been an adult for a while then. Your acting's really bad. He blinked, seemingly confused. I dropped the act. You jerk. You've been acting as me all morning. Didn't you try to force me to erase you? Then why don't you call out the main personality so I can negotiate properly how to erase you completely? The alternate personality stared at me without expression, then sneered and lifted my chin. You really want me erased that badly? His robber logic made me laugh angrily. He'd been the one leading me to erase him. Now he was flipping it on me. You jerk. Do you know you're basically fishing for a trap? I pushed away his hand from my chin. He narrowed his eyes dangerously. So what? I was speechless. Don't think you can fool me with this erase or not nonsense. First, you're coming with me to psychiatry, then we talk. 17. After the consultation, I was itching with anger. Once out of the hospital, I grabbed Fenwick's collar, teeth clenched. Did you think lying to me was fun? The doctor said the main personality and the alternate personality were both Fenwick at their core. The alternate personality was really just emotions repressed by the main personality spilling out. Erasing one completely? Impossible. The two personalities depended on each other and couldn't be separated. The best current treatment was hypnosis to gradually integrate both personalities. Looking into my eyes, the alternate personality suddenly reddened and said resignedly, "Don't you like him more? Wouldn't it be better if I disappeared?" I was stunned, then laughed bitterly. "Didn't you hear the doctor say you're the same person, Fenwick? Then who do you like more?" I grit my teeth. "I like both of you." The following treatments went smoothly. The day Fenwick's dissociative identity disorder healed, we went to get our marriage certificate. Back at home, I stared at that little red booklet, still in disbelief. I really married Fenwick. Fenwick had just showered and walked over to kiss my lips. "Emerson, what are you thinking about? It feels so new. We really got married." Fenwick chuckled. "Yeah, now he's officially married. No more marrying Omegas." I sighed helplessly. After the two personalities fully merged, Fenwick inherited the alternate personality's rough nature. Or rather, that was Fenwick's true nature, just well hidden before. I kissed the corner of his mouth, and while he was stunned, whispered in his ear, "We're married now. Still jealous? How about doing something productive? Is that okay? What do you think? Stop holding back. I'm yours now." Naturally, I had a sleepless night. I asked Fenwick when he first started liking me. He said he didn't really know. By the time he realized his feelings, I was still dating Omegas. That's when the alternate personality, bearing all his negative emotions, was born. We missed a lot of time, but thankfully, we still ended up together.